All right. Ani bojo nemki kwe dijnikas tigmikshing donjba mashkos dodem. My Anishnawbe name is Thunder Woman. I'm from Atikmikshing, and my clan is the Elk. I introduced myself, as I mentioned last year, as a place of identifying and connecting to land, space, and location, and also my identity. The Traditional Knowledge and Geoscience Project is a collaboration with Metal Earth team Ross, Rasmus, and Steve Piercy, as well as we have a team of people working with us alongside the project from Matachewan, Mattagami, as well as from Waban Tribal Council. And before I get started, I also wanted to acknowledge my neighbors here in the Mississaugas of New Credit, the Anishnawbe and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people for welcoming me into their space to be able to share this knowledge with you today. So with that, I'm gonna move along. So I spoke last time about some of our objectives, and part of the project is to begin to start that relationship with the communities, to start building that unity, to be able to go into the spaces and do good work. So collaborating and sharing that understanding between two worldviews, specifically when it comes to research and geoscience. So our goals and objectives are to kind of start to examine those relationships between geologists, and the land, and also our allies. So the picture that we have there is, so last May we attended the GACMAC. We put together a panel. So we had Gima Kwe, Jennifer Constant, as well as Elder Art Petahtegoose, and a negotiation team member from Atikmikshing join us, as well as, what's his name? Andy Fion joined with us at that panel session. So it was an opportunity for community as well as us as facilitators to navigate that relationship and be able to share and hear from community people who are kind of going through that on a day-to-day. It's as part of their job and from where they come from. So we created this this design, I guess, to be able to promote this panel session at the GACMAC. Excuse me. So I wanted to read this quote. So I'm still learning my language, so be patient with me. But I wanted to talk about Anishnawbe. It's a quote from the Treaty Times. In Anishnawbe teachings, Giigendaasowin, which is Creator's Law, emphasizes Minnow na Wemagawewin, which is harmony through respectful relationships among individuals, families, communities, while recognizing autonomy. So, and the reason why I want to share that is because it's really an important key point when we're working in community to understand the interconnectedness of everything that is being shared. So the picture is speaking to that as well. So that's a piece of Matachewan's history. So when we were out there, they brought us to this space. And the guy that brought us out is, he's coming from a historical knowledge place. He's sharing his experience. He's talking about his connection to the land, and he's talking about his community. And I find that a lot of this project is, the knowledge we're receiving is all oral. Like, I've gone on the internet to look for some things, and I can't find anything because it's part of that oral history. That's how our knowledge was transferred, was through storytelling. And when we started the project, I mentioned the community was offered tobacco to kind of sit in ceremonial spaces. So we really started the project through ceremony. And I keep saying that because it's really important to kind of highlight that piece, specifically around the sacred circle that we gather. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but I also wanted to share a little bit about fire, and it's coming from the Treaty Times magazine. It's like a book. I encourage you all. It's free online, like if you wanted to check it out. But they have knowledge keepers that share stories. But I wanted to read this excerpt because it really is the foundation of how we're doing this research. So Shkode kan is like the fire. So you might see the language in some of the writing that we're doing with this project. So the fire really brings people to sit down and be together. We have in those spaces sacred items which hold like integral significance. So when we're bringing those items into spaces, we're essentially asking our ancestors and our spirit helpers to kind of be in that space with us to guide conversation and to help that Shkode, which would be like your fire, the fire keeper, the man who's kind of tending to the fire while we're having these important conversations. So there might be things like cedar, there'll be sweetgrass, the four sacred medicines. We might even have a pawagan, and the pawagan is like it's a pipe. So like if you look at the Robinson Huron Treaty logo, there's like a pipe on there. Like there's significance on the pawagan, and I'm not going to go into full details, but there's just some really deep connections to that when it comes to fire and being together as community and allies and learning with each other and honoring those sacred spaces and those items. So we have our research question that's kind of guiding us, which is how do we mold that Indigenous knowledge with geoscience ways of doing things? And we talk about mutual benefit, and when sometimes people hear the word mutual benefit, the idea sometimes is to go to industry, like think about how that is within industry, but it also is in relation to like how we work as researchers as well. So like how are we capacity building at an institutional level, like working with our students and community. We talk about environmental stewardship, cultural respect, following the 4 R's, the respect, reciprocity, relevance, and responsibility as a researcher. So that kind of connects back to what our overall goal is and what this research project is about. So moving on to kind of like collecting. So last year we were kind of at the beginning stages of like starting that relationship and going into community. So we have now gone into community. We've started some of this work, and the qualitative research is mostly like, it's gonna be descriptive. We're gonna get that oral history. So the 3 points here, we are getting that through elder knowledge, which is by sitting down and listening to hearing their history, hearing about their values and traditions of the community. So that's sitting in those spaces, or even having coffee, tea, and bannock. That's how we're gaining that qualitative sharing and information, traditional knowledge, as well as through storytelling. So not just elders, but we have community people that share that knowledge with us through being a hunter, being a trapper, and their familial connections as well. So that's where that storytelling comes in, and making connections to legends. I think I mentioned before about the Mishomis book. So the Mishomis book it essentially tells us stories about how we carry ourselves and our values. And then we have like the land connection that is also part of our qualitative research. So when we went out with the community, for example, lady slipper. So I saw a lady slipper on one of the slides yesterday, and I kind of like lit up with a little bit of a smile, because in one of the communities, Matachewan specifically, we had an older lady that was with us, and she really, she shared about being a young girl and kind of being out in the bush and like connecting to this flower and like wanting to know where to go find this flower. And she said, like I don't know where to find those flowers. And then me and Ras were riding down the road, and I'm like, stop, let's take a picture of that flower. She wants to know, like, she had not gone out to see this flower, and so I'm taking pictures, and there's like a whole field of these lady slippers. But then when I came back, she kind of like tested me a little bit, like she's like, so do you know what lady slipper is used for? And I'm like recalling like earlier in my career working with some traditional medicine people and kind of like talking about the significance of the lady slipper and how it's used as medicine. So I was able to share that with her, and it kind of like put a smile to her face, and she's like, yeah, that's really good. So, so I wanted to kind of just share that little story with you, but When we're talking about both communities, and I just wanted to kind of also make a point that, like, what we're finding out, or what I'm finding out as well going into these communities is, I know there's like territorial acknowledgement. So each community has their given, I want to say like Indigenous Services Canada, like location and space, right? That's what they identify as their community. But what we're finding out and just kind of hearing stories is that we know that their communities go outside of that border. Like their communities are actually kind of connected together. Like we have Mattagami over here, we have Matachewan over here, and even like Bear Island, Temagami area, like they're all like within that same location. And I can almost even say Atikameksheng, because if you look at the map, there's a map that is going to show up there. It's not on this slide, but like the closeness of location. So that's something to just be really aware of, like the hunting and trapping lines that may or may have been forgotten or that are just being rediscovered through talking about oral histories with those communities. So that acknowledgement of territory is really important, I think, when going into community to do research, because they share those stories through conversations at sacred fires or sitting down at tea and bannock. So that oral tradition is, oral transmission is really important. So, like I said, we are using the project to talk about these aspects through fire. So now here we're going to share a little bit about the science piece, how we're integrating a little bit of both. So not having a science background, I'm, been doing a lot of reading and kind of really strategizing how we're going to put our data together for this project and how we're going to relate geoscience to the communities who might not have a fully comprehensive awareness of what geoscience entails. So looking at the previous slide, we had the three headings there on elders, knowledge, land, connection. So connecting geophysical methods around history, values, and traditions. So I had talked about how it's related to stratigraphy in geology is really in connection to kind of talking about that history, the values and traditions of that land and space, as well as in the geochemical analysis piece, so which is a knowledge transfer. What is a good example I want to say for that is the magnetic anomalies. There was a presentation yesterday that was talking about magnetic anomalies, and I was sitting in the back and I'm like, okay, there is a connection there in terms of like Indigenous knowledge and oral tradition, and that would be the connection to like the thunder beings. So the Animki Benesiwag would be like the thunderbird. So when it's about to rain, you see the birds high up in the sky. And we have a connection to the thunderbird because it's the closest bird that can communicate to creation. And that's like a worldview, it's a belief. We really have high regard for thunder beings. But there's a point, there's a story, like when the thunderbird flaps its wing, that's when you hear the thunder. And then when it blinks, that's when you get the flash of lightning. But we know that there's magnetic energy in the ground, right? So where that lightning is striking, we know it leaves a mark. So it's called thunderstones. Like there's a mark that's left when the lightning hits the ground, and I've heard it being referenced as thunderstones. And there was like a quartz like material that's kind of left behind. So talking about the geoscience piece and the magnetic anomalies is, so just being able to communicate that with the communities, because they are wanting to have this like scientific knowledge shared with them and have that dialogue of going back and forth. And then another example is the ICP testing and how it like, we're talking about fire and the excitement of fire, and I think I really want to like really talking about some of those the testings, how we're looking at that world, whether it's microscopically or in raw form. So part of the project, we have shared with the communities about key focus areas. So what we're finding is that, community engagement has always been a part of this conversation, as well as traditional knowledge documentation, data collection. These are the key areas that we approach the communities, what some of our focus area was going to be. So during that implementation stage, we know that these conversations have always been on the forefront. So talking about that, the picture there, they are cooking ducks. So in the teepee. So we've been to their community and sat in that same teepee. They gather together there. So the data collection, we're kind of in that stage right now, and also having that interdisciplinary approach. So like I talked about it before, about having, like, we have a very large team for this project, which is a key to making things move. It's key to making the project successful and including everybody as a part of that conversation. So I'm gonna just move on to the next slide because all the fun stuff is, so there's my map. It should have been on the other slide, but it's okay. So I just wanted to show a little bit about location. So as we've talked a little bit about our involvement in the community, so we have completed 2 visits with Mattagami. So we had our first circle back in last year of like April, and then we went back in June. And we had our first visit in June as well with Matachewan. And out of the circle work that when we sat together, the youth and the participants have pulled out some of these themes as well. So really talking about the youth engagement and land exploration. So the youth really expressed wanting to be connected to culture and identity. They expressed wanting to know more about ecology and the spaces that were in their home communities, wanting to connect to the land. Traditional knowledge and healthcare. So the elders and some of the young people as well in both communities talked about, you know, how taking traditional plant medicine has always been utilized for like thousands of years to be able to heal and take care of their physical bodies, which is through salves, it's through tea, like talking about lady slipper or Labrador tea. So really wanting to like retain that knowledge within their home communities. So talking about environmental concerns was another one that kept coming up. They're really concerned about glyphosate spraying, like when there's clear cutting for like hydro. And both communities are like, it came with stories of like when I was growing up, you know, my dad used to go to this place, but you know, they came and they clear cutted, and it almost came with like a bit of sadness, you know, like they missed that time in their life or that place. So they're really concerned about that glyphosate spraying, and it's not just that. There's concerns about water, concerns about like land spaces, you know, and that just comes with the deep connection to those community spaces and being connected to the land. Talking about spirit animals and helpers and guidance. So we had a young gentleman who was like really wanting to embark on his journey for identity. So he hadn't had an Anishnawbe name. So I made reference to myself as Nimkikwe, and he's still on that journey to trying to find out who he is and how he can connect to his own identity. There was an old settlement. They took us to the old settlement in one of the communities, which was really nice. You know, it's nice to be on the water. We got a chance to be on the Mattagami Lake as well as the Montreal River, which was really good. Mining and industry and environmental impact was a theme. Knowledge sharing, wanting to retain that, and then also talking about ceremonies and spiritual practices has always been a part of the conversation, and then really kind of being kind and gentle, hearing community people's story, their personal journeys, because that's where that knowledge transfer is happening, like kind of being just that humanness and that kind and caring person to just hear what their stories are and what they're all about. I'm just gonna take a drink of water. So we also have youth who are really involved in the project. We have met with the Mattagami First Nation, have a youth leadership. They have a council. And I met with them back in February. Was it February? And kind of went over the first kind of draft report of all the information we've kind of received through that circle work. And they really have a desire to kind of learn and wanting to create actually a video. Like they were really excited, like going and wanting to video with their own people and talk to their elders so that they can retain some of this knowledge that they're talking about as it's, you know, connected to the community. So they bring that new perspective, they bring young voices, they bring that youthfulness to the project, because we're acknowledging they are also knowledge keepers, they are knowledge holders, and they're going to carry that 7 generations down the road. So we often talk about that we have 7 generations, there's 7 clans, we have the 7 fire prophecies. Like, 7's very significant, but each of those things come with like knowledge, teachings, and sharing, right? And as young people, like they're resurging, and that's part of that Shkode knowledge is like there's a resurgence right now happening with young people wanting to kind of learn about who they are and where they come from and what that means to be grounded as Anishnawbe. So we went to the communities. Sorry, I'm gonna take a drink. Matachewan really highlighted wanting to know more about the untold side of geology. So that's that story. They invited us to a hunt camp, which we didn't get a chance to go to, but that's that part of that relationship building. Like, come to our hunt camp, you want to meet our people, you want to talk to us, come out to our community events. And that's the messaging that they're giving us, and it's, again, they had a heavy conversation with us about territory and kind of how that plays into their community story. And then Mattagami had invited us to Beaverfest. So I did go to Beaverfest. Actually, it was really amazing, really awesome. It was really fun. So I was there as a part of relationship building. And I had an opportunity to meet like 18 people from both communities, like stopping by at our booth and just kind of like, what are you doing? Like, what is this all about? Like, what is this geoscience and traditional knowledge, And they're there and they're questioning and they're asking. So at the beginning of the project, one of the communities actually came back to us and said, how does this fit with us? Like, how are you going to fit this project with us? Like, and we needed to respond to that. Like, we had to kind of say, like, well, this is how we see things, and this is how we think the project could, be of benefit to you and then to us, and kind of working together. And they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Let's keep this going. Let's keep this conversation going. So talking about history and families with Mattagami has always been a part of that conversation. So one of the elders in Mattagami actually shared a kind of bit of a powerful metaphor, and there's deeper meaning and significance to it, but she sang us a beautiful song at our first circle, but she also talked about being connected to the land. So we call the land Shkode, which is like our Mother Earth. Like, you hear people referencing the earth as Mother Earth in Anishnawbe communities. But what does a mother do? So a mother nourishes. We have an umbilical cord, we feed our babies, and the mother always provides that nourishment. So she kind of made that reference to kind of talk about like the earth nourishes us like a mother, and explaining that when we're our children, we don't take all of our nourishment from our mother, is what she was saying. We always leave some for mom, like we're not gonna take it all. So humans must learn like restraint and reciprocity in their relationship with the earth. So like going to one spot when they're harvesting medicine to just kind of take a little bit. When you're taking bark off the birch tree, you're only taking what you need. So that's kind of what she was referencing when we're talking about working with the land and in all these spaces, when we're taking water from a lake, how much are we taking and how are we putting it back or replenishing that water? So that's that nourishment of the mother, Shkode. So I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to get Ras to kind of share a little bit about these 2 pictures, if you wanted to. Your experience, because he was with me at both those community visits, and just kind of the excitement of being in community.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit to the whole project, really. I think because this has, as you can kind of hear, it's a lot about relationship building. What we do, it's what this is really about, and. My experience with Mattagami and Petahtegoose coming out to these First Nation wonderful people is when you mention you're a geologist, they relate that 100% with mining and exploration, which is a little sad in a way because geology is more than mining and exploration. And so if you can, I've been really, I think, pretty good at explaining what geology, the storytelling that geology is able to do, and to tell these stories about the formation of rocks and the formation of seawater and the composition of our planet and evolution of our planet. And it's been really, they really like that type of story. So it's about storytelling that connects us together, and that's the whole relationship building, I think. So they get a little bit of opening up what geology really is about, and it's not, by far, it's not mining and exploration only. So that I think that's a good connection we have done there. So so that's kind of just what I want to add to what we're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you have anything, Steve. Yeah.
We're good? Okay. So one of the things, we have another story, so we got lots of stories. We're just talking about stories left, right, and center. But one of the ladies, actually, when we were in one of the communities, so ceremony is a big part of what we're doing, and community always take that into account. So you might hear in the news, community this and community that, they met with industry and they did like this type of ceremony together, which would be like, I know my uncle talks about, a blanket ceremony, kind of sitting down together and kind of reminding each other about the responsibilities of what it means to be on this side and what it means to be on this side and how we're gonna work together. So we've actually been invited to kind of be a part of ceremony in one of the communities. One of the knowledge keepers there was, come to shake tent ceremony, but like most people will be like, what is that? But it comes with there's teachings, there's knowledge, there's experience. So to be able to talk about it is to have to experience. So like we make reference, like kids learn from what they see, right? So they see, they learn, they see, and then they do. Kind of like the same thing with kind of participating in ceremony. For myself, like, going to the lodge, like I'm able to kind of, I've gone to the lodge several times, so I know from like start to finish, like what to expect and what that process is. So like being able and open to be a part of some of those things when working with First Nation community, because we got communities from East Coast to West Coast, right? Like it's a Canada-wide kind of, but each area is kind of different in terms of their teachings and values and beliefs per community. Yep, okay. So the next steps, this is almost my last slide. So next steps is focus on keeping the conversations going. March 25th, we have a meeting with Matachewan to do their first draft board. Matachewan, we have another visit planned for a large team meeting. May 1st to the 4th, we're wanting to get in our second visit with Matachewan, as well as doing a geology day and bringing some LU students to the community. So connecting science, we kind of talked about that. Rasmus spoke, Steve's good. And questions and answers. Done.